wanting to make the world a better place and joining us from all over the world. It really is incredible to see new faces and have these fresh conversations. So my name is Tessa Vanderkop. I'm joining you today from the unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nation. I live in a place called North Vancouver in British Columbia, Canada. I work at Purpose Pathways, where I help organizations of all kinds and leaders on uncovering and then embedding purpose into their organizations. So just to make sure you're in the right place, this session explores how nonprofit organizations can embed social purpose governance into their DNA, sort of moving, beyond traditional compliance-focused governance. Social purpose governance aligns an organization's leadership, operations, and strategy with its social purpose, really through concrete actions and changes to bylaws, strategy, and advocacy, and of course, performance metrics. So today, it's my honor to be moderating this discussion. I met the MCIS team a few years ago, really when social purpose was, still a very small movement. And that's when they first started on their social purpose journey, really making them front runners in this space. So I did the easy work of helping lead them through the process of uncovering and then embedding their purpose. But, after the webinars are done and all that is done, the hard work really begins. And so embedding purpose is a process of becoming over time. It really takes a lot of leadership, heart, commitment, collaboration, and hard work to move the needle forward. And MCIS's leadership and hard work has paid off. Last week in Toronto, they were honored and recognized as an outstanding social purpose company by Greater Purpose, which I think is really deep recognition of where social purpose is growing and going, and to their commitment to building, a resilient organization to meet the challenges of our times. So I'd like to just quickly allow our panelists to introduce themselves. Lata, if you want to introduce yourselves, and then Nancy, and then Eliana.
So my name is Lata Sukumar. I'm the executive director at MCIS, located in Toronto, Canada. And yeah, I've been in the organization for a long time, come from a background in law, and it's been my honor and privilege to serve this organization. Thank you.
Nancy, I'd love to have you introduce yourself.
Hi, sure. My name is Nancy Bell, and I am a board member and chair of the Social Purpose Governance Committee at MCIS. And in my other life, I'm an academic and an educator, and I work in the area of multilingualism and advocacy for students' language rights.
Perfect. Last but not least, Eliana.
My name is Eliana Trinaitic, and I've been in the role of Director of Social Purpose, Impact and Culture at MCIS for close to 3 years. And prior to that, I held the role of Social Impact Manager in Port Liaison. I'm also very privileged to have this stellar team and doing pioneering work in discovering and embedding social purpose, and looking forward to this opportunity to explain a little bit more what we do.
Perfect, thank you. So just as way of a little bit of background to the conversation we're going to have, I've heard Dr. Victoria Hirth, who's the convening and driving force behind the ISO 37000, a global framework that places purpose at its core to ensure that decisions are aligned with an organization's reason for being, which really means an organization is putting sort of people and planet at the center of its decision making and is measuring their impact beyond just profit. And I have heard her say that the current poly crisis is a failure of governance, and that by embedding purpose, prioritizing people and planet, organizations become more resilient, and that this is the way forward to building a sustainable economy that serves people and planet. So just keep that in mind as we have this conversation with Lata and Nancy and Eliana. And so starting with you, Lata, so your social purpose is that you exist to uphold the human right to be informed, heard, and understood. As a social enterprise, you're already, mandated to create social good. What factors led you to uncovering and embedding purpose in your organization and then formally embedding it into your board? And what do you see as the biggest benefit you can unlock with social purpose?
A great question. So just by way of introduction, MCIS is a nonprofit social enterprise located in Toronto. We provide interpretation and translation services across Canada. Are we sharing any slides here? Okay. So the reason, are you going to play a video? Were you going to do that?
I think we did, but I think we may have missed the opportunity.
Anyway, so let me just start over. So MCIS is a nonprofit. As I said, we provide language services, which means we provide interpretation, translation services to the broader public sector across Canada. We serve over 1,000 agencies, including all levels of government. And we provide services in over 300 languages and include French as well. The way we are funded is we have about 10% of our funding coming from grants, and the rest of it is fee-for-service revenue. And as a nonprofit, we cannot invite outside investment, so we are bootstrapped. We have to actually earn our revenue and go from year to year. As a result of this, the challenge that we faced as a social enterprise is that we had mission drift because we had revenue pressure. We were chasing all these lucrative contracts, and this conflicted with our purpose sometimes because our preoccupation was more to sustain ourselves financially rather than stay true to purpose. And then when COVID happened, actually, it became clear to us that we were running from one RFP to the next RFP, and that we were not really aligned towards a common goal that was higher than earning revenue. And we found that people suffered from social isolation, and we had to step in and provide services to people accessing food banks, for example, for people receiving information in English that they needed translated into other languages and so on. And so we realized that we really had a unique positioning. We could position ourselves as an organization that actually facilitated human connections and provided critical information and services to people, and that this had to be a human right. So given that, it wasn't obviously easy to then create this purpose and align ourselves to it. And as our operational complexity also changed, we found that there was this dilution of culture. So what we had to do was decide, okay, let's create a decision lens and, look at the way in which we make all decisions with respect to procurement or the bids that we make based on impact on language rights, social justice, financial stability, tech use, etc., to guide us, right? And we also made operational commitments to adopt the ISO 37000 standard. And then we also realized that we needed to be very intentional about measuring our impact by creating free services, by aligning ourselves with the UN Social Compact, and aligning what we did with the impact measures under the UN SDGs. So I'm going to leave it there, and it hasn't been easy. I'm going to let others speak, and then I can sort of speak more about how we address those big challenges.
I think that's really interesting because I think what I'm hearing is that social purpose gives you clarity. And I think that, and I think during really, challenging times, I think businesses, social enterprises, nonprofits are really, I think, challenged, I think, by all the things coming at them. And so would you say that the biggest benefit you had hoped to unlock was really finding that clarity and rooting it in your culture and values, and then using that as a yes no sort of decision lens. And
Yes,
Eliana,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd invite Eliana and Nancy to jump in here too if you have anything to add to that. I'd be interested to hear.
So I can just basically say, yes, the clarity of mission and product market fit really helped us because it helped us crystallize our why. And then it also increased trust in the community and gave us community legitimacy. So all of that was really good and improved culture, created new partnerships, fostered innovation, gave us financial sustainability. And I will let Eliana speak to the rest of it because she'll speak to operational realities as well as Nancy to the governance piece.
Okay, so we'll go to Nancy next. So in social purpose, it really is vital, I think, if you're going to sort of garner the benefits of a social purpose pivot, it's to embed it at the highest level of your organization. So it has to be embedded at the board level, and there has to be oversight and buy-in from your senior staff, and then that flows into strategy. But Nancy, specifically, how do you start from, ground zero to really building and embedding purpose into a board? What was that process? And maybe if you can talk about sort of policies and
Sure.
yeah.
So this whole process started not long after I joined the board, with Latha kind of describing what social purpose was. And then Eliana and her gang introduced us to the ISO 37,000 principles and this, this sort of new global approach to how we think about governance and nonprofits. And so we also went to a few other workshops and things about social purpose governance. And so I think that was sort of the board's introduction to kind of looking at governance from a social purpose perspective, and not just, we're here to make sure that the budget balances and that everything's done legally and ethically, right? And so we started a process of looking at the 4 foundational policies that are recommended. And so those are value generation, which really, really sort of gets at our core of what we do, strategy, which again, and looking at strategy from a mission purpose as well as from a business purpose, and then accountability and oversight. And we have just completed a process of looking at those 4 policies, initially through our committee, sort of rolling up our sleeves and from the ground up developing new policies. We've shared drafts with staff members, with other board members, and we've had some collaborative opportunities working with staff, in particular with our strategy policy a couple of weeks ago, to see how that worked and whether that clarified between us and the management what our various roles were. And and we could we use this as a document that would guide us from a social purpose perspective, as well as from a management or a business perspective.
So I'm curious. So what I'm hearing is that education piece and awareness piece was really critical. Was that buy-in sort of immediate from your board, or did you get any kind of pushback? Was there an aha moment when everyone said, "Yeah, this is what we're looking for. This is what we needed"?
I think the buy-in was pretty immediate. And I think the buy-in has grown over the couple of years. And I think that one of the things that's interesting about this is, and you noted earlier, that we were already an organization that had a commitment to social justice. And, Latha was saying there may have been a bit of mission drift. And I think our board members, I can say this for myself. I mean, we joined this board because we wanted to be involved with something that had a purpose as a volunteer. And so I think for me, definitely for me, and I think I can probably speak for some of the other board members, this actually engaged us maybe a little more even than we were before. because we start seeing our role as well, like that the board and that the governance function that we fulfill is actually part of the social purpose element of the organization. And I think it has proven to I think it's made it easier for us to recruit new board and committee members and to strengthen the board. I think the board's stronger now than it was 3 or 4 years ago.
So the conversations at the board level are different because they're not just focused on business viability. Is that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, maybe not all the time, but I think, I'm thinking about a committee meeting that we had last night, at which our board chair was there. And I think we had a really, really meaningful conversation about social purpose and how it applies to our budgeting process.
Well, and
So,
that's what you do, right? Your social
yeah,
purpose is that lens
yeah.
on everything. It's that decision-making lens on every single thing that you do. It flows throughout the organization. Not an easy thing, I know, because sometimes, that's a process over time, and it takes time and resources to shift to that. So, if not, I sit on a board, and sometimes there's resistance. If you had to give advice to someone in this room, and we'll invite questions and so forth, but if you had to give advice to someone where there was that resistance, is there one thing that you would say that you think could sort of kickstart that conversation? Or you can't convince people, but like, is there anything that you can think of? This is how I might start that
You know what
conversation.
I think was probably one of the most effective things in terms of board involvement in this. I'm going to go back to the full day workshop that we had, not just the one passed on October 3rd, but the one before. And we spent the afternoon working with staff and listening to stories that mostly staff members remembered from their time there, that were meaningful to them, and why they were committed to MCIS social purpose. And
Yeah.
I think if any of our board members had had any hesitation after they heard those stories, they were there.
Well, and storytelling, I think, is one of the catalysts of social purpose, right?
Mhm.
Because as you embed purpose and grow purpose, you start, I think, understanding, and already as a purpose-driven organization, even previous to that, I think it's the heart of the organization, right? Purpose is your heart. And I think that's what makes it so, I think, compelling. Eliana, just on a more practical level, you embed social purpose throughout the organization. We talked about it being a decision lens on different, so it could be procurement, it could be hiring. Can you maybe share a little bit about the opportunities, the challenges, and the processes of what that looked like for you on your end?
I'm really fascinated by the conversation so far, Tessa, as well, because there are some things I'm hearing here that we don't have a chance to really discuss, particularly about past events. And it's good to know that things that we do together make an impact, and how many different perspectives and different people you need in the room to create the change that we are creating now. But in terms of procurement, we had a social procurement policy way back in 2017. For most of our events, choosing caterers, service providers who demonstrated commitment to community development and so on. But as we are entering the social purpose ecosystem, this practice of choosing became even more integral to who we are. We are recognizing that we are now part of the social purpose ecosystem that makes for us easier to partner with like-minded organizations and businesses. And in terms of the HR, and we elaborated a bit more, we have a white paper that came out in April, May, Transforming Canadian Social Enterprise Through Human-Centered Governance, co-authored with Tanya Tosuti. This paper shows a bit more in detail how we saw a significantly better candidate fit after we began publishing our purpose statement and sharing our social purpose journey video with both prospective staff and board members.
And as we redesign pre-screening and interview protocols to include these statements or videos, it really sparked more meaningful dialogue about our organizational values and social purpose. And this is why in 2022-23, we saw a whopping 71% increase in candidates demonstrating strong familiarity with concepts of language access, language justice, language rights, inclusive of knowledge, awareness of MCIS social purpose and mission, vision, and values. And then we restructure onboarding process to embed this from the day one. So we're including direct engagement with the social purpose team, executive director, and as a result, our management reported some immediate benefits, such as they say higher quality hires, stronger employee engagement, improved work productivity, even reduce absenteeism, and I would say the greater interest in internal career advancement. But there is little challenge I'm kind of noticing lately. Speaking about procurement, because we are sort of broker in between language professionals and service providers. And I think our task will be in the future also to do better job with our vendors. Given the challenges in the language industry and because of the rise of the AI especially, I think the messaging around these new technologies is very unclear, and the governance trying to understand the impact of new technologies is very messy. But we are advocating for human first in review, revision, judgment. Humans as ultimate arbiter over algorithmic rules in all critical services, and this is not only applicable to language industry, I would say all public services. Without this advocacy for humans in critical service delivery, we will not be able to sustain our purpose. We might lose even significant human dimension. And this is the value humanity that we deeply believe in, and it is becoming much broader than our own purpose. This is the work I feel we still need to do.
So AI is a significant challenge at all. Yeah. Yes, I can understand that. Would you, I have heard from others, not on the AI front, but just the, that purpose and sort of well, it was, if you're talking to different teams, for example, your sales team or your marketing team, and they're dealing with vendors. I was talking to a client and she just said it was a real struggle for her salespeople to really, I think, understand the language of purpose when they were selling to their customers, and that it was really a time, it was a journey over time to be able to get them comfortable, I think, with that. Do you feel like that happens as well within your own organization on different levels?
So,
do you want to go ahead?
no, you share your thought and then I will go.
It was just, as also Nancy mentioned, it's way better than it was. It's a slow process, but the steps are founded in a lot of practices. So I think over the past 3 years, we did not start this like yesterday. It's been 3 years that we are sharing the same consistent message. If you stay consistent and keep including people, you're going to have results over time. And people will find their own language, how they are going to communicate this. It doesn't mean necessarily they're going to follow your sentences in your exact language, but I guess the key is, as Nancy said, to share this story so you feel something in your heart, and then you use your own language and embed that in your sales. Basically, you are selling a service that is critical for people, so it's not like any other sale.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that purpose, kind of, when you're centered on your purpose, you tend to become more creative because constraints, I think, spur creativity. So you have to navigate around that purpose and come up with novel hybrid solutions. So one of the things that we've done very successfully is to bring about a whole human-centered approach while keeping the human in the loop with respect to AI and looking at ways in which we can embrace it in order for us to amplify what we do and do it much better, right? The other thing I've found is that with a purpose-driven organization, you have employee-led innovation, because we have more decentralized decision-making and purpose forums. We have micro solutions that come from our frontline staff. So with purpose, as Eliana was saying, we have to be very consistent. And the way that we've done it is with kind of visible rituals. So we have monthly town halls, we have bi-weekly team purpose circles, we have open, share of impact stories in our managers' meetings and so on. And then we also have decision transparency. So if we make a decision, we try to really don't take a top-down approach, but we try to really explain and be accountable for all the decisions that we make, because we believe in a purpose-driven organization, you have to lead by example, and you have to participate in and communicate with all levels of people at all times, and keep purpose at the center of all your communication. And also, very importantly, the board and senior management have been committed to actually allocating resources to actively fund our impact initiatives, our impact team, and so on, in order for them to be able to carry on all this work, because all of this is facilitated by them. So it's a whole, as Eliana said, an ecosystem, and the board has been really front and center supporting it, because the board is responsible for our business strategy, right? And they have seen the benefit of centering purpose and fostering innovation within us. So I think it's worked really well at MCIS at all levels of the organization.
Nancy, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so.
I just want to say I'm really glad that you said innovation, because I think what we see with organizations that deeply embed purpose, and there's purpose oversight, and it drives their strategy and it flows through their organization, is that it does unleash innovation, because you are really using that purpose as a way for everyone within your organization to ideate. And that's how you, and that's, I think, what drives that innovation piece. I think can contribute so significantly to organizational resilience. And then the other thing I think is that, you have large organizations and smaller organizations, and the real challenges, of course, is resourcing it, because you can't do this without some ownership of that. It needs to be stewarded, and it needs to be loved, and it needs to be coddled, and it needs to be really grown, right, at the deepest levels. And so I was happy that you mentioned that.
I just want to mention one other point, which purpose does, is it also unlocks partnerships, because you like, for example, with the United Way and with your organization, right? Like when we had that purpose in mind, that's when we realized, or we looked for and found organizations that were like-minded, So that's a very important piece, because you cannot do this journey alone.
I would completely agree with that. And I think that when you use that, your social purpose as that North Star, there is no way you can achieve that, I think, on your own. And that really invites that collaboration and partnership piece that I think sometimes we miss occasionally in that business as usual environment. So I would completely agree with that. I'm just wondering, and I'd love to hear from all of you, like if you had to name your number one significant challenge, you are at the forefront of, embedding social purpose. There was no roadmap when you started this, really. And, you're charting this course. What are the challenges in doing something like that? Because I think there are challenges, but what are they for you think? And I'd invite, Lata, all of you to sort of jump in, but start with you, Lata.
I mean, I can speak to some of it. Like, I'm an optimist, and I've sort of provided the rosy picture of it. But the difficulty is we bid alongside for-profit organizations. And so for us to be able to clearly differentiate ourselves based on purpose is not so easy, especially with, public sector buyer, even with public sector buyers, actually, because they're always looking for the lowest price, right? And so in order for us to carry on with our purpose, it does cost money, because we are we are a bit lofty in our ideals, and we want to support, we want to have support staff and so on to help us keep aligned with purpose. The other thing is, it challenges our resilience, because we believe that our stakeholders trust us, but then there are times when you don't feel so supported because of purpose. And then the other thing also is, in terms of long-term sustainability, revenue is always a challenge. Now AI is disrupting us in a major way. So then it becomes a toss-up. Like, sometimes you have to make decisions which are very, I don't know, you're treading on thin ice with respect to whether there's purpose alignment there. And so then you're conflicted as to, how you do this. So those are some of the day-to-day that I face, especially when I look at my financials, and I look at, opportunities. That's the only thing.
Any further thoughts from you, Nancy or Eliana, on that?
I would like to just elaborate a bit. Thank you for mentioning business as usual, Tessa. And in fact, I mean, business as usual rules majority of our choices, because this is, I mean, even in personal life and in business life, this is what helps you define success, right?
Mm-hmm.
In business, we default to this business as usual when we choose monetary outcomes as the only measure of our success. And to be fair, I mean, if you have creditors or funders or shareholders or stakeholders, they prefer to hear business as usual, familiar language. They want to hear measured, managed, efficient, cost saving. These are all signals that we are creating some sort of future value they do understand. But the core problem of business as usual is it has only a short-term focus. Business as usual maintain everything as is. It does not change. It does not imagine. It does not leave a space for imagination how things could be. So changing today's economic paradigm, and I'm the most really challenged by this economic paradigm, and it's a big systemic thing that we cannot, as a one single organization, change. This requires a long-term planning. It requires boldness and vision, and also confidence. I would say that this social purpose will be a generator of some sort of enduring future value that will strengthen the fabric of society and be not only beneficial in the future, but essential. And one thing that I would like to see, I mean, I don't think in Canada that we have the main obstacle here is not a lack of goodwill. It is more a kind of lack of codified vision around social purpose. If we would, for example, legislate social purpose, similar to the UK 2012 Social Value Act that requires public bodies to consider social outcomes in all procurement, then all the public contracts in Canada would carry this clear, enforceable social purpose expectation that we're going to hire people who who face barriers to employment. We strengthen local economy. We are paying living wage. We invest in communities. We assets. We create parks and pools and theaters. And then if we would embed this requirement into public contracts, that would help us to redefine business language, and we would, I guarantee you, very quickly move from return on investment to social return on investment. And these are the types of conversation we need to have in Canada, in the public, also global forums like this one. And I really want to thank again Catalyzing Change Week for giving us opportunity to talk about this, because I think it's similar in all countries all across the world. What do we actually value? How do we speak about metrics and results of our work? And what kind of, how can we align economic infrastructure with societal well-being?
Yeah, I think measuring is a big challenge because we can measure outputs, but outcomes are long-term. And so it's really hard. And for us as an organization that connects entities, it's really hard to show how our work is benefiting. So we struggle with impact measurement as well.
So I would like to echo both of those, that I think measurement is an issue, and I think the financial pressures, and particularly what we're seeing right now, and kind of the the unknown about as we were talking about yesterday, it's really hard right now to develop strategies and plans for a fairly uncertain future that's being disrupted. So I think those are challenges, and I'd like to add, I think for the board in particular, I think one of the big challenges is time, because I think that social purpose governance requires a board that is going to give a lot. If for board members who are just looking for a board to sit on and come to a meeting, 4 times a year for an hour or so and look at some financial statements, if that's the kind of board member you are, then you're not going to get social purpose governance. And to get, really great committed board members who have the time that this takes to do this kind of work, I think is a challenge. I think it's one we've been meeting, but I think, it's difficult because they all have lives too.
That's a practical concern, I think, right? And so, yeah. I heard someone, and then we'll go on to, because I want to give people time to, anyways, I feel like I have so much to say about all of this. But just in the interest of time, so other people can ask questions, just quickly, practical tools that you have used for this journey that you're on. I'm not sure who would like to take that.
I think I had mentioned the decision lens. I also mentioned, the rituals that we have in terms of, so the decision lens, we have like a decision toolkit that was developed by another organization that we kind of crafted to use. And we had criteria such as impact, social justice, financial sustainability, technology use as criteria. And then we sort of started to rate important decisions that we make, including contracts that we bid on based on the decision lens. And then we have, as I said, it is a placeholder item in most of our meetings. So we have discussions around our values, our purpose, and also we have town halls. We have weekly pause and connect sessions. Those are all rituals that we have. So those are some practical, tangible things. And then we also did a whole training on appreciative inquiry for a bunch of our staff, so that they come at, their interactions or communication cadence is based on more on positive, constructive, appreciative discussions rather than, putting each other down. So a very supportive environment to foster employee empowerment. So those are some of the things that I can think of.
I also have one, yes. Just going to give you a little bit of the background, because I think this is one old tool we have. It was not a result of the purpose discovery implementation, but we have this successful tool for more than a decade and really unique in our industry, something we call internally, externally social benefit fund. So each year, depending on our financial performance, we put aside between $60,000 to $120,000 dedicated truly to free language services, first come, first based. Interpretation, translation, training for individuals with no support, training, interpreters, translators training, advocacy for language access, basically these 3 items. So with this fund, we have in the past influenced political party platforms, we created micro grants for very innovative language access projects, we had language policy hackathon, we had translation pop-up clinics, LGBTQ communities, migrant workers, and we also this fund helped proclaim a day of language access in cities like Toronto back in this year on February 22nd. So the interesting thing about the governance piece is that the fund is administered by teams of employees in translation, interpretation, and training department, while the social purpose governance, our team just oversees the process, but it does not interfere with approvals. So self-governed teams decide on the merit and allocation of the funds. We provide training, SOPs, and then year after year in employee surveys, we found that our staff is extremely proud of the work we do with this fund, and because this is the talk we generally walk. So I'm thinking in organizations or companies, regardless of the size, it would be really interesting to create a similar tiny little fund just to catalyze conversation about governance. What do we want to invest in? How to invest? What do we measure? Value? What kind of outcomes do we expect? A fund like this offers a practical framework for discussing merit and balance and accountability, and also affirming, I guess, the spirit of generosity and responsibility for community prosperity. So if anybody in the audience is interested to find out more about this, feel free to email me. But basically, we can share the model, but you cannot copy and paste. It is really unique to every organization how this is going to work, and this fund was developed organically.
Thank you, Eliana. I realize we only have 15 minutes left. I'd love to open up the floor to the people who've joined us here today. If there's any, I'd actually love to hear who you are and where you come from and what drew you to this session, and any questions. I'm just checking to see if there's any hands. I'm scrolling through my screen.
We provide a lot of information. It's hard to ask a question. It's a lot of new info.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you think of something, be sure to just put your hand up and jump in. But I would love to just revisit something that was said earlier. Your purpose is a decision lens. I heard someone say that their social purpose, when it came to really tough decision making, helped them keep it based in principle rather than personal. That sometimes sort of dysfunction in workplaces can sometimes be like, well, I want this for this reason, but that purpose kind of help to keep that conversation about really how you serve your stakeholders. Would you say that that's a fair kind of assessment?
Absolutely, yes. Resounding
Okay.
yes. Yeah. And I think our staff team, you know, I get a lot of complaints. I do a lot of problem solving, conflict resolution. And I see more and more that it's no longer personal, and they try to put the language, you know, the person that needs the service, the most vulnerable, at the center of everything when they are discussing issues, which I think is so important. Rather than it's not my fault, you made a mistake, I made a mistake, you know, have these power tussles. They actually focus on stakeholder benefit and or the end user or the vulnerable person's benefit. In terms of the systemic solutions that they come up with, which is fabulous. And I think it's a great shift that we've seen.
And partially, Tessa, if I can add, I really think that COVID was a catalyst for this. We had this kind of culture in person for years, But the moment we closed our doors and the work still included a lot of interaction with vulnerable population or really critical situation, we felt that there is something that keeps us together. So that sort of fueled this type of research or insight into what is that is keeping us together. And then slowly we formalized the purpose. Our purpose was basically defined by staff consultation. We had many, I believe 8 or 9 in person, online. Everybody had a voice and everybody arrived to this, if we did not state our purpose up to now, the human right to uphold the human right to be informed, heard, and understood. So everybody rallied around this one statement, and it was really, really powerful, and we feel it's still powerful.
So one of the things that I've been doing, Nancy, recently is I've been talking to all my frontline staff, and I wish I had done this a long time ago. And I've also been speaking to our language professionals, interpreters, to find out what their experience is working at MCIS in terms of the work that they do and how they feel supported. And I'm so pleasantly surprised by the very heartfelt, passionate way in which people say that we're so different from other organizations that they work with, especially the language professionals, because they are freelancers. And that makes me, think and believe. They say MCIS stands for something because not only do you do great work and we get real satisfaction from the work that we do, we also feel very respected. We get paid on time, we are responded to right away, we're emotionally and otherwise supported whenever we have a question or we have a debrief that we need to do. So I feel like it's really percolating through the organization. And whatever it is that we're doing it right. Of course, we still have a long way to go. And, tomorrow is another day and we don't know what challenges AI will bring. But for now, I think we're all very purpose-driven. And I'd like to believe that at least.
I just want to just add that, when purpose is clarity, not charity. And I
Yes.
think that that's one of the real benefits that I'm hearing that you get. It can be messy, it can be difficult, but it engages your internal stakeholders. You build new collaborations. There's that sense that everyone is on one page and you're grounded in that purpose. So just for the people who are here today, the work that Eliana was talking about in uncovering your purpose, and we say uncover because when we first started this session, Lata talked about mission drift and not aligned to common goals because you were just trying to get these RFPs. With every organization that uncovers their authentic social purpose, it really is a deep dive back into why that organization was started, like what problem you were trying to solve. And then really, I think, finding that the few short words that will express that outcome that you are really trying to drive for. And that becomes that kind of galvanizing force within your purpose. So we have a few minutes left. I'd love to just invite each of you, what advice, like if you are an organization here today and you're in the hurricane that is known as life. I heard someone say, by the way, that strategy, is difficult to do because every day is a different day depending on what has happened. And that strategy is like more of a 3-month cycle than a 5-year cycle, which I think is almost, I think people feel that. But anyways, I would love to invite, I'll start with you, Eliana, then Nancy, and then Lata. What piece of advice would you offer for anyone thinking about or wanting to start this journey or stay on this journey?
In my view, I think that our hesitation to embed social purpose in either governance or economic infrastructure really stems from, I would say, deficit of hope we have about the future.
the deficit dulls our impulses to imagine, to have a courage to imagine alternative visions for this future to exist, some infrastructure to support this dream of how things could be. But multiple futures are possible, so society unfortunately slips into this self-fulfilling prophecy of low expectations. So I would have one piece of advice would be we should actively not only expect from our institutions, businesses, leaderships, and governments more, but we have to hope for more. Things are changing. Let's think about New York mayoral race of yesterday and today. Things are changing, they could change, and we should hope for one another. Let us feel hopeful about choosing, I would say, governance and policies and practices that by upholding dignity for all, will catalyze innovation and align capital with inclusive and regenerative and community-centered prosperity worldwide.
Thank you, Eliana. Nancy?
I think the thing that I would most emphasize, I think particularly from, board members and a governance point of view, is that I think there might be some hesitancy to embrace this because it might seem like, it's not disciplined enough in terms of, business. If we're being completely socially driven, are we still going to be fiscally responsible? And I think it actually sharpens you. I think clarity is the term we've been using. I think it provides more clarity and therefore more discipline around decision making and how it gets done.
So clarity, not charity, is right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
For sure.
And Lata, and then I actually see there's a question in the chat, but Lata, please go ahead and then we'll see if we can get to
so I just want to say a bunch of statements. One is purpose arises because there are problems that need to be solved. So you attract the right talent because people actually want to solve problems. Purpose wins public support because there's increased trust and community legitimacy. Purpose attracts the right talent. So there's improved recruitment and improved culture. Purpose unlocks allies. So you have new partnerships and new programs. Purpose unlocks creativity and innovation. Purpose opens up ideas for revenue generation that create impact. Purpose brings governance maturity, decentralized decision-making that could result in employee-led innovation. Purpose differentiates and purpose builds resilience.
Thank you, Lata. Quickly, Nancy and all of you, there's a question in the chat. Is Bridget joining from Tanzania, co-founder of Aliba Yetu, an NGO providing free education for all ages? She's here, or Bridget's here, to get some guidance on reforming their board. They're based in Tanzania and have a hard time recruiting a board member who represents our beneficiaries in the local community, has a time to understand our mission, doesn't have a conflict of interest. Any suggestions on what to do to even just get this started?
In terms of recruitment of board members?
Yeah.
I think it's Canada is very different from, but based on our own experience, it is always a challenge. And I'm telling you that it's usually the same people that are on different boards. And we find it really difficult to attract from the public. So one of the things that we did is with our board members, we did videos and we posted them on our website, and they talked about their experience on our board and the work that MCIS does. That's one suggestion for how you could potentially attract people. So your board members or existing board members give testimonials and talk about how fulfilling it has been to participate.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Bridget?
And I would add to that I think, again, as with everything we've talked about, it's a slow process. And so if you can find that first, one or two strong board members, I think strong board members help attract other strong board members. And I think that's been true in our case, that a number of our board members have come through personal contacts of other board members. So it's that first one or two that can be the most challenging. And as Latha said, it partly depends what kind of infrastructure you have already. Even though it's hard here, we do have some organizations who are committed to just matching boards and volunteers. So I don't know if there's anything like that that you can draw on.
Perfect. I hope that that helps, Bridget. So we're at 10:58. I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. Please, if you have more questions or would like to have a conversation, reach out to us on LinkedIn. Always happy to continue this discussion that we started here today. Thank you so much for Latha and her leadership. It's not easy trying to do something new. And to Nancy for her leadership and oversight, and Eliana, who does a lot of the hard work within the organization and is such an incredible champion. And I want to thank
Eliana is the visionary. Eliana is the visionary, I have to say, really.
She is,
She
yeah.
always is thinking years ahead. Yes.
She reaches high.
Yes.
And that's what you need to do in the world that we live in, right? And all of you. So thanks for joining us, Nancy, Eliana, all of you who joined today, and Catalyst Now for hosting this incredible conversation.
And to Tessa, who is keeping us together and coming back and run this conversation. We've been, this is third year, I would say, of really fruitful collaboration. So thank you, Tessa.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
Tessa has
relentless.
been amazing. Tessa has us on this path, so we owe it all to her.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
have
you.
a great rest of your day.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.